The readings for today all testify to the powerful impact of encountering the divine, and in very different ways. Saul, about to become Paul, is blinded by a light from heaven and is called to a radical reversal in his life. The psalmist bears witness to being restored to health and joy by the power of God. John, exiled to the island of Patmos, experiences the thunder of celestial voices and is drawn into their cosmic praise of the resurrected Christ. And Peter and the disciples are gifted with yet another encounter with Jesus, their friend and Lord, whom they thought was dead and is now alive and in their midst. From hatred to love, from sorrow to joy, from shameful denial to renewed devotion, being touched by the power of God transforms lives. These are all powerful examples, but it is Simon Peter who touches my heart most this Easter season. Sweet, bumbling, enthusiastic Peter, leaping impulsively from the boat, though not before pausing to put on some clothes. Leaping impulsively to greet his risen Lord. Poor, remorseful Peter, having to make up for his 3 denials of Jesus by having to answer the question, "Do you love me?" 3 times in front of all his brother disciples. If Peter were a dog, I think he would be a golden retriever. With big brown eyes, bounding around, wreaking havoc, and then hiding his nose under his paws when he's scolded. Simon Peter touches my heart because I identify with him so much. If I were to meet Jesus in the flesh today, I have a feeling he would be asking me the same question. Elise, do you love me? But he would have to ask it way more than 3 times. And I keep saying, Lord, you know that I love you. And each time Jesus says a version of the same thing. Tend my sheep. It can feel sometimes like being told to prove our love, like not taking our word for it. For all the times that I've hidden my light under a bushel, and there have been a lot, or times that I have not stood up for the poor, haven't I also done a lot of good things? I don't think Jesus is keeping a tally, even though in the gospel reading that numerical correspondence between the 3 denials and the 3 statements of love are meant to parallel each other. But there's so much more here. So much pain and guilt, but ultimately so much comfort and release. So the question for me is, what is it like knowing all our brokenness and all our mistakes and all our fears? What is it like to stand before the living God? What is it like to stand on the beach, face to face with Jesus, with nowhere to hide? Peter's encounter with the risen Christ invites us to imagine our own face-to-face with Jesus, whether in Bible study, in worship, in personal prayer, in imaginative practice. And if it makes us a bit nervous, as it does me, Here are some things in which I think we can take comfort from this poignant meeting on the beach. The first is that love, though it may begin in the heart, is really something we do rather than simply something we feel. If I love someone, it will show in the ways I treat them, care for them, seek their good. Our love seeks an outlet simply by its very nature. If you know the play Fiddler on the Roof, it's almost impossible not to think of Tevye plaintively asking his wife Golda, "Do you love me?" And her answer seems very evasive at first, as if she's trying to avoid the question. "It must be indigestion," she says. "You're a fool. Why ask about love right now?" But she begins to ponder their life together over 25 years. They've shared a household, fought, ate, and starved together. And they both discover that love has been there all along in their simple acts of caring for one another, their children, and their community. Jesus says to Simon Peter, "Feed my lambs." To love Jesus is to love and care for his people, the neediest among us, as well as those closest to us in our daily lives. Jesus didn't say, "Save the world." He said, "Feed my sheep." Love is found in the small, daily, ordinary acts of care and kindness, as well as in grand deeds of bravery. Even so, knowing that our love can show forth in small ways, we still squirm, as Peter does, under the gaze of Jesus, because we know how often we have fallen short. And so here is another learning for us, and I think this may be the hardest of all. When Jesus looks at Simon Peter and asks, "Do you love me?" Simon knows himself to be, in a certain sense, under judgment. His failures and weaknesses are laid bare. He is shown for who he truly is. And for each and every one of us, this is excruciating. But here is the thing. That judgment comes not with condemnation, but with absolute, indestructible, invincible love. Remember that in the Gospel of John, this is the same gospel in which we hear way back in chapter 3, "For God so loved the world." And in the first letter of John, it echoes clear, we love because God first loved us. Earthly tyrants are continually asking their subjects, "Do you love me?" and are constantly seeking proof, validation, worldly honor from those around them. But they ask that question out of emptiness, fear, and desperation, not from love. And so their demand for expressions of love evokes fear, chaos, and destruction. It shuts others down and extinguishes love in those that receive that demand. But Jesus looks at Simon Peter with unbreakable, bountiful, and self-giving love. And that love changes everything. It is the source and strength of everything that follows. When Peter goes on to spread the good news and help tend the flock, and as Jesus foresees, die a martyr's death, he does so, I believe, not out of guilt or pain, but out of love. And it is Jesus' love that makes it possible. So we are on that beach. We are bumbling, stumbling Peter, yearning to know our own worth even as we come face to face with our past sins. And what we discover, if we are brave enough to look, is a love that makes all things possible, including our own capacity to love and care for others, to tend his sheep. And we are all given sheep to tend, not just Simon Peter, not just clergy. That call is for all of us. And that call is meant not for our diminishment, but for our flourishing, and especially our joy. Our joy. It is love, Jesus' love, and the simple acts of love that make that joy possible. The last words of our gospel reading are actually almost the last words that Jesus ever speaks in the Gospel of John. And they are also practically his first words, going back to chapter 1. And those words are, "Follow me." Bookends to this gospel, forming a vessel for the word that appears more than 40 times in John, more than in all the other gospels combined. What do you think that word is? Love. Following Jesus is how we learn to love others, because in following, we discover how deeply and utterly we are loved. One of my favorite blessings is known as the St. Teresa blessing, but it actually comes from an early 20th century British poet. I pray all of us will come to know it as Peter did. May today there be peace within. May you trust God that you are exactly where you are meant to be. May you not forget the infinite possibilities that are born of faith. May you use those gifts that you have received and pass on the love that has been given to you. May you be content knowing that you are a child of God. Let this presence settle into your bones and allow your soul the freedom to sing, dance, praise, and love. It is there for each and every one of you.